No matter when you step on your spiritual path, no matter when you make that decision to say, I want to open up intuitively, I want to start using my intuition every day, you're always going to have moments where you crave learning. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to learn this. And today I want to talk about a concept that's really, really important to either the speed of learning or the block that can come in that sometimes we're not even aware we may have. And that is the different teaching styles that are out there in the world today and how they match up with the different learning styles. I firmly believe, and I'll give you a couple examples in this episode, but I firmly believe when you take a moment to look at your learning style and then look for a teacher that matches that, your acceleration expands tenfold. Let's get into it. Welcome back, you amazing spiritual seekers. Here we are today talking about not necessarily tools and techniques, but something that is extremely valuable because it's where it all starts, and that is matching your learning style with the right teaching style, and how sometimes we can stumble upon different teachers who, when they don't match our teaching style, can hinder us, slow us down, and sometimes even block us. And it might not always be apparent, but if we sit down and we take a minute to really evaluate it, and I'm going to cover some things in the session today that are going to help tremendously. But when we sit down and we take a minute to evaluate the teachers that we're working with, the learning styles that we have, we'll be able to see, are we really in the right space? And then, better yet, we'll be able to really harness the teaching that we get with our learning style and apply it to our life. So let's jump into this today. For new listeners, I want to welcome you. My name is Bo, and I have a lot of experience with this myself because I haven't been open the entire time. From birth, right? I haven't been open intuitively. I have opened up at the age of 32, so I was a pretty well-established adult. And one of the first things that I did, that almost everyone I know, all of the students I've come across does when you first open up intuitively or you get pulled onto your spiritual path, is that I looked for teachers. I looked for information, books, videos, classes, anything I could get to absorb as much information as I could. And when I first got onto my path, again, 32 years old, right? Complete skeptic before this. So we're talking starting from zero. We're like, I didn't even know what a spiritual guide was. Like I just absolute zero, right? So I open up, I first start communicating with my grandmother. And then I meet my first spirit guide, which I didn't even know was a spirit guide at the time. And I lovingly called him Big Dog. You can learn all about him in my book, Cracking Open. And he was my teaching guide. Didn't know that at the time, but we stepped into it. I met with him every couple of days, sort of really hungry to learn how everything works. But at the same time, in the newness of it all, I started going to classes with living teachers. So I'm a spirit guide, not here on this earth plane. However, I would go to other classes with teachers and try to learn as much as I can. And I found that none of the teachers that I happened to stumble on really overly benefited me. I can't say they didn't benefit me, right? Because everything we learn, everywhere we go, we're collecting something, but it wasn't my groove. It was what it looked like I was supposed to do, but I wasn't moving forward at all. I remember going to a class really early on, and it was a psychic development class, and I went to it. It was a whole bunch of people. It was kind of fun. And I sat down, it was like at a community center or something, and they gave us decks of cards and stones and things, and they said, okay, just lay the cards out and read them. And I remember saying, how? Just complete fish out of water. How? Like, where do I start? What do I look at? What am I looking for? Where is this? When is it going to come in? How is it going to come in? I had so many questions. And there were people in that class that thrived. They were like, yes. And it was simply for them, their learning style was give me the space to do it. And in the action of doing it, it all just sort of naturally came to them. But for me, I needed explanation. I needed to understand how it worked, right? Give me the tool, give me a technique, give me something to try. And so that was the beginning of me seeing that different people learn differently in the spiritual world. Fast forward, I kept reading different books and different things. And then finally, my spirit guide said to me, after I had absorbed so much information and had different interactions with different teachers, that I couldn't find one that really helped me understand it all. Finally, my guide said to me one day, and this is probably like a year into my development, "Are you done?" And I said, "Well, but I've got so much to learn." And he's like, "I'm right here." I was like, okay. And that's where we shifted into a different learning style. Now, did I learn from everything previously? Absolutely. Absolutely. I took something away from everything, right? But it wasn't until I started learning in his teaching pattern that I started to advance very quickly. Very quickly. And now I know that when people, meet a professional intuitive, someone like myself that's been out there for 19 years, working as a professional, teaching people across the globe, I understand that first reaction can be like, oh, it must have just turned on and been perfect. Nope. I teach because I was in the shoes of everyone else that also just stepped into it. It takes time, and you have to develop, and you have to get used to what your intuitive channel feels like and how it works and how you're wired. So when he said to me, and his name is Big Dog. I absolutely adore him. He's incredible. He taught me so much. But when he said, from here on out, what I want you to do is come out here and journal. Journal everything I tell you, and then go out in the world and then experience it. And that's exactly what happened. I would go there. I would sit down with him. He would teach me a few things. And it was from linear time, past lives, how the five senses connect into the intuitive channel. He would teach me all of that, and then I would write it down, and I would go out into the world for 2 or 3 days, and then the synchronicities would pop in from outside. Like I would see this, or I would see that, or another piece would come together to confirm what I learned with him. And the puzzle pieces started flying into place, just flying into place. And I was like, it's all making sense now, right? It wasn't until probably year 3 that I looked back at my development and could see it with more of a clear eye now that I was teaching people, to see that there are teaching styles that do not work for different people. And when we say this out loud and we acknowledge it with zero judgment on any teachers out there, then that's when we can figure out where we need to be and how we need to align to fast forward on our path. So with that said, let's break this down into 3 categories, because you know me, I like order. I like things to sort of fall into different spaces and have analogies, and I like order. But let's break this down into the 3 different types of teaching, right? And mind you, you might start with one type of teaching, learning from one type of teacher or source. I'm going to call it a source. And over time, you might shift to the next one. That's very common. So I'll cover the 3, and then let's talk about the shift. So there are the 3 teaching styles out there are gurus, lighthouse teachers, and self-taught. So it's not necessarily a teacher, you're sort of teaching yourself, right? You're the teacher. So we've got gurus, lighthouse teachers, and you're the teacher. With all 3 of these, most everyone either dabbles or hangs out for a while in the guru sector, right? And then when they're ready to really get into the nitty-gritty of their direction, they'll find a lighthouse teacher. And then, especially because it's a spiritual path, and I will explain this in more depth as to why this is, but then after they've worked with a lighthouse teacher or 2 or 3 or 4, right, which is probably the best thing to do, then they'll go to self-taught, right? That is their direct connection to source. That is where the learning is the deepest and most intricate. Now, if you look at these 3 stages, gurus tend to be kind of introductory, right? Submersing yourself in the energy of what you want to learn, being in the environment, getting kind of umbrella wisdom is what I like to say, sort of this kind of mystification of, what it is I'm stepping into. Then someone will take that and say, now I really, really want to learn more, but I feel stagnant. So if someone spends a significant amount of time in that guru phase, right, where they're sort of working with different gurus, and I don't mean phase in a bad way at all. I mean, this is their submersion into their spiritual world, right? If someone stays there long enough, they find that they have the general overall concept from this, but now they want the details. Now they want to go further. Now they want to go deeper. And in general, and everything I'm about to say coming up, bear with me, love me through it. There's no judgment about it whatsoever. And all of these styles land in different phases of our learning development. So it makes sense. Some people might skip right over the guru and have no interest in following a guru. But everyone's got different phases, right? When you're following the guru, that is the person that is leans a little bit more into, I am the wise one, I know, and I will tell you what I know. And sometimes the gurus even have, not all of them. I'm sure there are some great gurus out there, but there's a few of them out there that are, I know everything, or I am this higher being, come down here, or, to teach you, I am better. There is a positioning factor in the guru. There's that above. Now, this is where we go judgment free. Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need, I just want to be in this environment, in this energy. I don't want to have to figure anything out. I just want to be submersed in it, right? That is a perfect calling for a leader that doesn't ask too much of you and just is the space of knowledge, we could say. But there's a status with this. There's a hierarchical structure, right? You are below. There is, in that space, sometimes people will move beyond the guru teacher to the lighthouse teacher because it seems like, especially if there's money involved, there's a course, and then there's a higher level, and then there's a higher level course. And each of these courses get more and more expensive. And each of these levels make you feel like you're not complete because you've got to get the next level, right? So sometimes people get into that flow and they start to see that the levels aren't necessarily teaching them anything new, but they're teaching kind of the repeat stuff. And then they start to think, well, I feel like I've gained everything I can from this path. And also one other thing that people can tend to move away from that guru structure is the feeling of like a limitation to the higher knowing. Like if there are, again, not all, okay? We're not saying guru, they're all bad, like everything else in life. But there are, the gurus out there that will position in such a way that you, my child, are limited to the higher teachings. You can't reach them, right? That's the positioning thing. Now, again, not all gurus, but there are some. It's out there. It is what it is, right? And sometimes people say, okay, I've had the introduction. I have been submersed in the energy. I have learned a bit, right? But I don't feel like it's continuing me on my path. Now I just feel like I'm showing up for this other living person. There's the key word. So the guru is the living person, and you learn as much as you can. And then at some point, there is no more forward movement with it. And then that's when a student tends to go to the lighthouse teacher. I love lighthouse teachers. And if I had my way, I would have you learn from 10 of them, right? I would have you find 10 of them, learn everything you can from them. Lighthouse teachers are teachers who are giant cheerleaders. They care about you unconditionally, and they really want you to succeed, right? It's not a positioning thing. They could care less. They're that unique interesting teacher that lives around the corner, down that alley, and you heard about the person from the person from the person. That's where you're going to find a lot of lighthouse teachers. And they're not in it for the fame. They're not in it for being worshiped or anything else. Can I just interject a small story here? In the very beginning, I went to go listen to a teacher speak. And I went in there and I sat down. I was in the front row. I was so excited. I was like a month into my path. And I'm like, I got to learn what this is all about. It was local. I went there, walked in, sat down. This man walked in and he walked up on a stage, and then he walked up on this like 3x3 pedestal and sat on this almost throne-like chair. And I know there's some other gurus out there that love their thrones. Good for you. That's cool. And he was wearing the most expensive shoes I had ever seen, just super classy. And you can't hate someone for that. If you like to dress, dress. If that's your groove, be in that groove. But he looked down upon us and started by saying, "This is my name. This is why I'm here. There's a reason I sit above you, because you are below me." Not kidding. It's the first words that came out of that man's mouth. And I was like, wow, where's the door? I'm out. I'm absolutely out. No. So that was one of these bizarre moments in my early years of developing that I was like, wow, this can be really gross. This can be really gross. So that one was blatant. That one was like, there it is. I also run across a couple other what I would consider gurus who I didn't necessarily learn from them, but they were some of the most amazing people I've ever met. So, whole spectrum, okay? Let's get back to the lighthouse teachers. The lighthouse teachers, their only passion is to give you as many tools and as much wisdom on your path as possible to be able to advance with joy, with your own strength. They see your uniqueness. They don't have that hierarchy thing. They don't have the one person is better than the other. They don't hold on to there's only one path in one way. That's kind of a guru thing. So they are open to you being exactly who you are, and they're excited to give you more input and help in order for you to advance where you want to advance and where you're being called to advance. So the reason they're called lighthouse teachers, and this was actually taught to me by my guide. And so it's not like if you Google lighthouse teachers, I mean, it might come up, but this is a conversation I had with my guide years ago. And a lighthouse teacher is exactly that. You are in your ship, your boat, right? And let's make it like a 30-foot, right? It's really nice. It's a beautiful boat. And you decide to get on this boat and start sailing your spiritual path. And you're going along and you're going down the coast, and you come up on some rocks. You come up on sort of blocks, right? So you're in this metaphor, you're coming across a time where you need to know more in order to keep sailing forward, but you don't exactly know what it is you need. And boom, that's where the lighthouse shines its light and says, I got you. Here's everything you need. Here's the light you need to continue. And that light, which is the information and the teaching from the lighthouse teacher, is going to guide you around, not only around those rocks, but further on your path. Here's what I absolutely love about lighthouse teachers. They don't need you to follow them for life. They don't need you to worship them. They don't need you to stay with them forever. It's not about followers. It's not about likes. It's not about any of that kind of stuff. It's about giving you what you need, that light to get you past those rocks. But then what happens if you're sailing a ship past a lighthouse? At some point, you go past the lighthouse and you keep going until you come across another lighthouse that helps you go even further, and another one that helps you go even further, and another one that helps you go even further. This is why I'm a big supporter of lighthouse teachers. When I meet them out in the world, and there's a lot of them out in the world, they're amazing. And when I meet them, I just want to give them a big hug because I'm like, that's awesome. And if somebody was able to have one lighthouse teacher in their path, they're going to go so much further. And it's not even that they're going to go further. Let me rephrase that to match an actual spiritual metaphysical experience. They're going to go deeper. They're going to be more of a conscious participant, driver of their ship if they have a lighthouse teacher. Because a lighthouse teacher is just going to be like, come over here, stay here, and this is everything you need to know, right? Lighthouse teacher says, I probably got that mixed up. So the guru is going to be like, here, just stay in this area of water and be bathed in this beautiful light, heal, balance, et cetera, but you're not really going to go anywhere past that. And for some people, that's perfect. That's where they need to be. And then that enhances their personal life. And that's all they really need in this path, right? But there are some people that need more understanding, more information, and to just go deeper and further on their path. That's where the lighthouse teachers come in. Now, let's get to this third one. The third one is the self-teaching, right? The connection to source. So you have now gone from your introduction, your submersion into the energy. Now you've gone to lighthouse teachers who have given you a whole bunch of information. And then eventually, there's only so much that they can give you. And you will be in a place that I think is beautiful, yet slightly, I don't want to say scary, but a little bit of take a leap of faith. You got to trust yourself on this. And you'll know when the time is that this happens. You will be in a place where you will only be able to step into deeper teachings when you connect to your source, to your higher self, and to your guides, and learn from them, which is a fancy way of saying learn from yourself, right? So in that phase, how do you know you're there? You have absorbed everything. You've tried all the tools. You have your toolbox established. This is a big one. If someone says to me, how do I know I'm ready to learn directly from source? My answer is, if you have your toolbox established and you know that that is the perfect toolbox for you, it works for you, it connects to your intuitive channel, it connects to your strength and your path, then you know you're ready to learn from source. What I mean by this is the lighthouse teachers are going to give you a whole bunch of different tools to try. You're going to learn over time, this tool works best for me. This tool does not work best for me. This tool opens up my intuitive channel. This one, not so much. This tool gives me more information when I need it. This tool there's nothing, just dead air, right? And tools, I mean intent exercises, spiritual tools that you use, patterns in which you hold yourself, inner work, shadow work, all of that. Eventually, working with lighthouse teachers, you're going to establish that toolbox. And that toolbox, you'll feel really comfortable with it. You'll be like, I got this. And the beauty of it is when that toolbox is established, you'll know, and you can go back to that toolbox in any moment and pull out the tools that work best for you. And you're also in a space where you've been given the tools, given the intent exercise, given the supplies, given all of that, and you have the confidence to be able to take those tools and adjust them and adapt them to what comes up in the future. Meaning, a lighthouse teacher might give you the techniques of pendulum work, right? And you do it long enough that it becomes a staple in that toolbox of yours. You'll know it's time to start working more and more directly with source. And this can be, you can kind of toggle back and forth, but you'll know it's time to start working more directly with source when that pendulum work, you naturally make adjustments and changes with the pendulum that you feel pulled to make that work better for you as you develop further on your path. You will become your own teacher, knowing when something is not working as well as it should and when you can shift it and change it to have it work better because new developments have come in your life. This is where you step into guide communication. Your guide communication will be strong when you're ready to work directly with source. Your guide communication will be strong. You'll have a connection to your higher self. And if you're curious about something or want to learn, this is the source that you will work with. This is the development that most people walk through in their spiritual path. And I think it's really important to talk about this, because if we say it out loud and we say, here's where you might be, here's where you're headed, here's where you were, here's where you are now, and you take a look at that, that empowers you to harness your spiritual education, your spiritual development, your intuitive training in a way that is going to work best for you, right? Now, real briefly, different learning styles. There are people who learn better in the guru area because they learn by just being and absorbing, right? Without a lot of detail, a lot of information, they just being in it and absorbing it. That works great for them. They might go right from the guru stage to the source stage, to the self-teaching stage. And then there are people that really want to understand how it works. They're not really interested in a whole lot of the let's make this out of reach. They want it to be within reach. Those are the people that work best with Lighthouse teachers. And then there are people who have such an instant connection with guides and with source that they can start working with them a little bit quicker. And then the Lighthouse teachers usually just confirm for them what they're learning from their self-teaching path, right? It's different for everybody. Take a minute to sit down and look at your patterns and look at your learning style, right? Are you drawn to the magical, the mystical, the really cool, like the wow stuff around it? And the more magical it is, the more you can grasp it and be in it and submerge yourself in it. That might be the guru style. If you're the type that you really want to drive the car, but you really got to understand how to drive the car, and you have to understand how the engine works, and then that helps you drive better and faster, you might be a learning style that matches perfectly with a Lighthouse teacher. If you just give me the information and let me absorb it and let me apply it on my path the way that I know how to apply it best. Let me learn in my own pattern. Again, you might be best with a Lighthouse teacher. And then when that guide communication opens up, when that source communication opens up, that's where I really want you to be brave and to start trusting the guide communication and the source communication, because who knows you best? They do. They do. This is why there's a couple ways also to reach this. Obviously, going down a meditation path is really great. Start meditating now. Even if you're just submersing yourself in the environment, even if you're learning and gathering tools from a Lighthouse teacher, even if you're still doing that, it's not even still doing that, even if you're doing that, because that's where all the juice is for you, that's how you're moving forward with the most joy. And I personally love Lighthouse teachers. I just want to throw this out there myself. Like, if there's anything that I want to learn, I will both work with my guides and source, and I'll check in with them, but then I'll also check in with other sources out there. So I'm also, a fan of that pattern. But start meditating now and start working on guide communication now, because that can, for most of us, takes time to build. But once you do, that's going to step you into that direct connection. That's where all of the deep information that you've learned from the Lighthouse teacher starts to line up with exactly how you're wired. And then even more and more doors start to open. When it comes to meditation, for example, I do something called Sacred Space, and I've done it every new moon, every full moon I'm going to age this here, 15, 16 years, something like that. I've been doing it that long. I actually have people that do it with me that have been also doing it that long. We meet every full moon, every new moon, and I do it in the Sage Circle community. It's my online Sage Circle spiritual membership community, and we meet in there. And Sacred Space is beautiful because my job is to raise your vibration, and I hold it in a raised state for usually around 20 minutes. And as I'm doing that, your job is to connect with your guides, your loved ones, source. Your job is actually to just relax and know that you're connecting with them. But by connecting with them, we get that feel for the guide connection, for guide communication, communicating with our loved ones, connecting with our higher selves in that higher vibrational state. As you're held in that higher vibrational state for 20 minutes, you start to feel that connection. And the more you feel that connection on a regular basis, which is why I do it every full moon, every new moon, the more you feel that connection and you submerge yourself in it, the easier it is for you to be able to get into that connection on your own, outside of sacred space. Meditation is powerful. So using meditation to raise your vibration is a wonderful thing. No matter where you are, start doing that right now. But overall, through this entire session here, this entire podcast session today, what I want you to do is start meditating. If you're not using GCP yet, please start using GCP right away. That's going to start bringing you some clarity. But I want you to sit down and think about your learning style. Think about your spiritual path. Who have you come across? Who have you met? Who have you worked with? Which teachers really resonated with you? Was it the submersion kind of thing? Or was it learning different tools or different bits of information? And then take a bigger look at the direction you want to go. It's going to help you to choose the path. Choose the path and navigate the path in such a way that you enhance your spiritual journey for you.